Hi, it's Michelle. How are you? Good. So I've sent you an email that has the information.
But the first thing I want to say is, did someone get in touch with Brad Hill? Because he's supposed to be joining us in about 5 minutes. So I'm sorry, you can see me in 1 second while I close down all these broken Zoom links and figure out where my agenda is again. There it is. Excuse me. All right, so we were trying to discuss the last day of school. Like I said, we got sidetracked last time because we thought there was a few things that we were wondering about next year, whether or not the marathon, that's what it was gonna be a day off or not. Have we figured out what that's supposed to be and what we're thinking next year?
I have not heard anything that has indicated that it'll be a statewide holiday. I'm not sure if anyone else has. My understanding was that for this calendar, it was on the agenda for March 18th, which I was not able to join the school committee.
Mhm.
But the issue that we had was that the month of November, the parent-teacher conference day was not counted as a school day, and it should be because it's a half day. And then that caused us to have to adjust the last day of school from Friday, June 18th, Friday, June 11th to Monday, June 14th, and then the 185th day from the 18th, Friday the 18th to Monday, June 21st. So this example that's linked into the agenda has the 2 months highlighted where the errors were.
Who can someone who has the capability of sharing things? Can we share that schedule? Can you do that, Michelle, so everybody can look at what we're talking about?
Or if you just want to.
Yeah. Can I share it with you? Can I make you a host, Julie?
Sure.
Okay. I did read that the governor was going to make, I think it's the 14th, a holiday, 14th of February or September.
September. What's if it doesn't get postponed again?
Right. So I'm not able to screen share. I don't know if somebody else is. Oh, maybe now I can. Okay. So can you see it, Stace? Okay. So this was the month, this parent-teacher conference day was not counted as a school day. This one was. And so this had one less day in this month, and it had one more day in this month. So we had to adjust it. Actually,
so what you're showing right now is what we're going to be voting in, correct?
Yes, this is the correct. So okay. I misspoke earlier. It moved from the last day being the Tuesday to being the Monday.
Which I'm sure everybody will show up for.
You want me to make a motion, David?
Please.
Sorry. I move that the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee move to approve the 2021 to approve as in our attachment or exhibit as what we're seeing on screen.
Second.
So I'm sorry I missed that conversation real quick. So are we changing, are we holding a date because we think there's going to be a state holiday, or are we not holding a date?
I would recommend just waiting to see kind of what happens.
So we would just call it a snow day or something?
This is the moving from the 22nd of June, the Tuesday, to the 21st of June due to a parent-teacher conference in November not being counted as a day of school when our parent-teacher conferences are in fact half days.
Yeah, okay. No, I understand that. I'm just,
All right.
but however, if that ends up being a holiday, then it's gonna, it will work itself out.
Let's
Okay.
go back. Yeah. But again, let's sort of cross that bridge when we get to it, because who knows what's going to happen, if that's even going to be happening in September. So right now we just have to, we can only plan on the things that we actually know, right? So, but so that's been moved, been seconded. So roll call vote, Michelle Bailey,
Michelle Bailey, yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
Hi Prima,
Yes.
and Peter Walczyk,
Yes.
and David Polito is a yes. Okay. So- there we go. Oh, sometimes this makes me feel so old. So Michelle do we know if Brad is going to join us now, or
He
should
will
we
be
move on?
joining us shortly. We can probably get through this thing. See.
Okay. Or can we?
Yes, we can.
Up next is the human resources support during extended school closure.
Oh, no, we have to do C, which is to review this year's calendar.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, you're right. So the reviewing 2019, 2020 school calendar, April break, and 185th day. So
Want me to do a little intro, David?
please.
So the question has come up, will we still have an April break? And will we really end school on the 185th day? So although the commissioner came out and said that time on learning requirements are waived, and that the 185th day in our situation, because our last day of school was March 12th, would in fact be our very last day of school. That guidance has been adjusted a bit. And so now it sounds more like you're not required to go beyond the 185th day. However, that is a local school committee decision if you want to extend the school year. And so that's one point to be discussed if that's something that the school committee is considering. And then also many school committees across the state are debating whether or not to have April break. Superintendents across the Commonwealth have been emailing back and forth all day about this topic. It's pretty split. I would say more leaning towards having an April break and feeling like our teachers have been sort of in a full court press mode, and our leaders to prepare for this remote learning plans, that these remote learning plans that we're launching, and that folks need that break. Others are feeling like they're just getting started and gaining momentum and want to work through the break and potentially adjust the last day of school. So if they were to have off Patriots Day and then get in 4 days, so to speak. Personally, my recommendation to the committee, if you were to ask, would be to maintain Good Friday as scheduled, maintain April break as scheduled, and just keep with the 185th day as our last day. But I leave it to you to deliberate and decide.
Did we get any feedback from staff and administration? I like the idea of sort of keeping the break, but if they're along the lines of like, you know what, we're going now, we feel like we have a good groove, I'd definitely take my cue from them.
So I've not polled the entire staff. I did have a conversation with our union president today, who was in favor for the break and ending on the 185th day. I also spoke with our leadership team, and I think they very much are also wanting to keep with the schedule and have the break.
And I just wanted to add, I heard from a community member about, well, I heard from two community members. One lives in my house, and he is of the opinion that he'd like to just continue because he's been bored, but I've heard from a parent who Triad is now offering their driver's ed class virtually because they've been given permission to do that. And so you're putting a lot of people who have invested a lot of money into that class. Their kids would not be able to participate. So that would be a bummer for them, especially because the next round might not be till summer. So I think we just have to keep in mind that people have plans that could still continue during April break.
I would rather go with the recommendation, which Julie has said, speaking with the leadership team and the union. We had this discussion how many years ago with February vacation when my daughter was, I don't remember when it was though. Again, these are unprecedented times and we just stick with what we know.
Yeah.
My recommendation.
The other important thing to think about is that we know that we're still on the uptick in terms of the curve and the number of people being diagnosed and becoming ill from COVID-19. And in the week of the 20th, we can imagine the numbers are going to be exponentially higher than they currently are. So really giving people the space to take care of themselves and their families and focus on being healthy would be the priority.
That's an excellent point.
It also gives 3 full weeks of our new remote learning plan to then assess and sort of reset and decide, are we on the right path? Do we need to iterate or adjust? And gives us a little space to do that.
That was my other thought process too, is I think it'd do everybody a little well to be able to sort of stop, as Ben, I love the way Ben put it, but it's just, we're building the plane as we're flying it, being able to sort of stop and make sure we're on the right path. I think that's really important. So why don't we just can we get a motion on, do we need a motion to keep everything the way we're going?
So it's a little early. Usually we vote the last day of school in May, but since we know what it is, should we just vote that and affirm our belief that we should continue with the calendar as it is?
I think so at this point.
I think we should.
Great. So that's Stacy. And I'd also like to let people know that Brad Hill has joined us, and in a moment we'll start his conversation.
Hi, Brad. Thanks.
So yeah, I think we don't really need a motion to vote and just keep it as is at this point.
Well, go ahead, Michelle.
My only question was, it's early. Usually we vote the last day of school in May. Do we want to just go ahead and do that now, or do we want to wait till May?
I think if we
I don't want to wait till May. Okay.
Well, no, actually, I think we
May.
should do it now. And the reason I think we should do it now is because I think people right now are just looking for some certainty.
Yeah.
Just make a decision. You know what I mean? We've all said it in private conversations to one another. We wish Desi would just make a decision. We would just, Governor would just make a decision, So let's just make a decision so we can at least give them that, and then even for everybody, it's by saying this, the parents know, the teachers know what they're planning for, the administrators know what they're planning for. So I think we should have the vote right now for that reason.
Hey, can you remind me what the 185th day is, and I can make a motion? Do you know, Julie?
Yes, it's Monday, June 21st, I believe.
22nd.
22nd.
There you go. Monday, June 22nd.
Okay. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee approve our last day in April break on the 2019-2020 to keep the schedule as is, and our official school end date would be June 22nd, 2020.
Second.
Michelle Horgan with the second. Roll call vote. Michelle Bailey.
Michelle Bailey is a yes.
Stacy Metternich.
Yes.
Peter Walczyk.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Michelle Horgan.
Yes.
Kai Prima.
No.
Jean Lee.
Yes.
David Polito's a yes. So that's 6-1 vote in favor. Ty, you had a no vote. I'm sorry. Did I skip over you wanting to say something?
Kind of.
I
mean,
apologize for that.
that's
I don't have
okay.
everyone on my screen.
Don't worry. So I guess I feel like so much school has been missed, and I know it's obviously to no one's fault, that I feel like any school that can be made up is important.
So no, that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
So you were, just to be clear, were you not in favor of, sorry, someone's using a blender in the other room. Can you guys hear that? All right.
Margarita Bill.
So, oh, I wish. So, were you just in favor of working through April vacation?
Correct.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely understand that, and I can value that opinion. I just think that having that sort of break to just sort of reassess where we are, just having the teachers sort of having that, I think is sort of a little bit important, just so you're not going through that constant grind. I actually think all of us, we need a break more than ever right now, which is the reason why I sort of lean towards keeping it. But I think that, you know, your point is very valid, and understandable.
Some districts have even moved their break up earlier because they just need a break.
That's what I was actually wishing we could have done. I didn't even think that was an option, but you know, I think it just makes more. I could see the value in moving it up to be able to take a break and then really sort of being able to go at it full force. I don't think I want to sort of throw any more curveballs into the mix.
Well, and another way to think about it, if we could be super optimistic, I don't think it's likely, but if we were able to come back to school, we will have those 5 days at the end, you know, at the end of the school year, where students could be present with their teachers as opposed to the remote learning status that we're currently in. Again, you know, my personal opinion, I think that's super optimistic, but it's one way to think about it as well.
Right.
So if Julie can stop screen sharing, then we will be able to see Brad. And there he is.
Excellent. Brad, thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. So Ty, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off too.
No, that's okay. I'm
All right.
good.
All right, thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight. I think I'm just going to sort of hand over the floor to you and sort of so you can catch us up on, I don't know, but anything new happened the past couple of weeks? Anything interesting going on? Something you want to share?
So needless to say, the state's been very busy the last couple of weeks. And a couple of days ago, we had a meeting with the Triton Regional School District, and Michelle was part of that meeting. And some of the questions and some of the concerns that came out of that meeting, she thought would be appropriately brought to your committee tonight, just so you can get a little snapshot of what we're going through in the next couple of weeks, but more importantly, in the next couple of months. Right now, revenue-wise, the state is in dire straits. I was just putting down a list of all the taxes that have seen a decrease over the last 3 weeks. You know, the income tax is way down, the sales tax, of course, the liquor tax. And also, we just got a report from the lottery yesterday that the lottery figures are very, very low. The scratch worrisome to us because of the unrestricted government aid that the cities and towns get, could be in jeopardy as we start putting the budget together. Now, talking about the budget, normally what would be happening as of today is we would be getting the budget for the House this week, and we would start debating it in the next couple of weeks. That has all been put on hold because the revenue picture is so cloudy right now. The state is hemorrhaging, you know, revenues, and we're concerned that putting a budget together could take a lot longer than we had anticipated. We had a meeting on the phones yesterday, 160 members with the Speaker of the House and the chairperson of Ways and Means, and we are now considering even going past the July 31st deadline, which is normally the time we would recess for the rest of the year. And we are now looking at ways or laws that would allow us to be able to go past July 31st in full formal sessions so that we could address the budget. Absent a budget on July 1st, what the state would do is pass a 1/12 budget every month until we were able to come to a consensus on what the full budget should be, and we would send that to the governor for his signature. But again, we're concerned because we are looking at possibly having to take revenues from the state to help fund the unemployment trust fund, which is starting to be depleted. As you have been reading in the newspapers, the amount of people who have applied for unemployment here in the state is like 10 times what the normal request would be due to this crisis. We are currently waiting patiently for the federal government to give us direction from the Department of Labor on what was passed Friday, which is known as the CARE Act, which would allow for small businesses and sole proprietors and those who don't get a W-2 form but a 1099, some help in getting some funds to be able to infuse into their businesses or personal life. We hope that we'll get that direction sometime this week and that we can start having people apply and start receiving some of those checks from the federal government. And as we look toward the state budget, we look to the federals of what the state will be receiving in help from funds from the government, the federal government, to try and help us with the state government issues. So moving forward, I'm waving a lot of red flags. One of the biggest questions was asked, and I think it was by Michelle actually, with what we passed last year for education, we're going to be able to see those funds moving into the FY21. And the fact of the matter is, I can't give you an answer right now because we don't know what the revenue picture is going to be. This current fiscal year, we are going to probably see a $1 billion loss. And moving into FY21, that number could grow as much as $3 billion. And we don't want to start going into the rainy day fund, which actually has $2.5 billion in it right now, because we're fearful of what's going to happen in FY21, and that we're probably going to have to use those funds to help get us through next year. So we've been very careful about what we're trying to do in this fiscal year. The governor, as you probably know, has been asking us to be able to allow him to borrow against what's happening so that we can move into next year, with a balanced budget. And I'll just remind people that under our Constitution, the Mass Constitution, we always have to have a balanced budget. So we can't do like the federal government and just make money and hope that things get better. If there's an imbalance in our budget throughout the fiscal year, we either have to cut or we have to look for other revenues. And in this case, I think we would have to do some cutting to make sure we remain in balance before the end of this current fiscal year. I think, I wish I could say I was optimistic that this crisis is going to end in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We just were told by the governor that today's numbers, I'm trying to cheat by looking down at my phone, so bear with me 1 second. We're now up to 7,700 cases and 122 deaths. And that 7,700 number was a huge increase over yesterday. So in 24 hours, we saw a huge case load of people who have the coronavirus. So that's concerning to us. We don't think we've hit the peak of this, unfortunately, and that this could go on for another month, 2 months. We don't know. All our medical advisors are telling us that this is going to get worse. We're going to see more deaths. We're going to certainly see a lot more people contact the virus. And that's a big concern to us, because if this keeps going on and the economy, has issues with revenues, then the state and the feds are going to have issues with their revenue picture. And that, of course, all filters down to the locals as well. So if I had to give advice or look into a crystal ball, I would say we should be waving red flags right now. And, any new programs that we had hoped to put in for next fiscal year, maybe we have to take another look at them moving forward. You probably have heard that the House and the Senate are looking at passing a bill that's going to allow you to move town meetings and allow you to move elections. And we are working on trying to adopt language that we allowed cities and towns where they could pass a 1/12 budget until they come to a consensus on a vote collectively that would give them a budget. Right now, the language for school districts and regional school districts is not part of that bill, but we are all working together to make sure that that language is included. And if it's not in the bill that we do tomorrow, it will be in a bill that happens within the next few days. I guess our message to Triton the other day was this is a day-to-day, hour-to-hour situation. And as issues come up, we file bills to try and address them and get them passed as quickly as we can. We're working with the Baker administration, the speaker and the president are working with the administration so that when these issues do come up, we have fast hearings on them so that we can get them passed. And we've been doing all of this informally. The State House is closed. We've had some cases identified of the coronavirus at the State House, so we've been told to stay away from the State House for now. And we're trying to work out ways that we can vote like you're doing via Zoom. What can we do as a legislature with 200 members to try and get these bills done formally? So just to remind you again, in informal sessions, one member can object to a bill and it stops the bill immediately. So any bill that we put forward has to be unanimously supported by 200 members. And so far that's been the case. But I can't, tell you that that would be for every bill that we put forward. So with that, I've taken up a few minutes of your time. I wanted to leave open some time for you to ask me some questions, and hopefully I can answer. And if I can, I certainly will get you the answers tomorrow.
We're pretty close. Well, we're not close, but we're way past the halfway mark to getting to the end of the year. Do you foresee 9C cuts this year, or really we're safe for this year and we should be focusing on next year?
So I would tell you that right now there's a meeting taking place on Friday where they're bringing in all the economic gurus that we listen to so that we come up with a new revenue figure. And as we get that figure, then we're going to be able to make better judgments and better decisions moving forward in this fiscal year and for next fiscal year. So to answer your question, I'm waving a red flag that we could see some 9C cuts happen this year. However, if it's local aid, that has to be by vote of the legislature. That is not under the purview of the governor. We have to agree to that. And I can tell you that I once did that under the Romney administration, and I'll never vote to do that again. Because as you probably remember, for any of those who were back in that time, we never got back to the numbers that we should have been at after we made those severe cuts. And I believe some of those cuts were up to 20% of your local aid. But 9C is on the table for discussion, as is using our rainy day fund. But as I said, we're hoping not to do that because next year is going to be possibly just as ugly as it is this year.
And today, Jay Sullivan said he was really certain that he thought that there would be a budget by June 30th. I'm not hearing that from you. Do you think he was maybe had a little fever or?
So I think we can get one done by June 30th. Okay. If we collectively work together, and if my colleagues, and I'm being blunt, if my colleagues can hold back on some of the requests that they would normally make in the budget, I'm talking about earmarks, I think that we can come to a consensus and we can agree on a budget. I think, again, a lot of nonprofits get money from this budget. Right. They may see some cuts. Are people going to be okay with that? Those are the questions that are going to be asked of us as we move forward. And I think after Friday, once we have a new consensus number, we're going to have a better picture or financial picture of what the state can do and can't do.
Brad, just want to confirm, so we cannot rely on, like this, you're talking about the kind of, I know we're all in limbo with this budget. The Student Opportunity Act didn't have a dedicated revenue stream. So we can't necessarily rely on that going forward, correct?
That was subject to appropriation. That's accurate. I can tell you that your legislative delegation, and not just Bruce and I, but the entire North Shore delegation, we want to see that this gets funded. If that is the case, something else is going to have to get cut. And those are the discussions that we have, as you do at the local level, on what we're going to keep and what we're going to have to cut moving forward. A lot of people put a lot of hard work into that act, and they want to see it funded. But again, looking and seeing what the revenue picture will be will help us decide what we can do and can't do.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns. Thank you.
Yes. Don't be shy.
I actually don't have anything for you personally. I'm wrapping my head around all of this great news you just gave. But
well, if anybody has known me over the years, I've tried to be as blunt as I possibly can moving forward, and I don't want to be right on this one, but I think historically when we've had issues like this and we thought we might see some cuts, we have. And I just want to forewarn you that that could happen. But we'll have a better picture within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Sure.
And once we have that information, then I can forward it back to you. I think Michelle and the superintendent and I have spoken that we probably will invite Senator Tarr back to another meeting with everybody, and we'll have better answers for you at that time.
Well, I appreciate that, Brad. I appreciate you really jumping in with us tonight and sort of just updating us. It helps to sort of get as much info as we can and trying to, figure out our decision making.
Do you mind if I ask a question?
No, not at all.
So I've been getting a lot of emails throughout my district, not just Hamilton Wenham, on the issue of kids learning at home and what the districts are doing. And you may have talked about this before I came on, and if you did, I apologize, and I won't look for an answer. I'll talk to the superintendent tomorrow about it. But a lot of people are wondering if they're going to be able to do school at home with the technology. Is the technology available for kids to be able to, basically be in a classroom at home? Some districts have chosen to do that. Others have not at this point. I don't want to speak to private schools, but some private schools have also offered, classroom teaching at home over the last couple of weeks. And the constituents that have contacted our office would like answers. And I know this is a district to district, and I know the state has given some guidance on this over the last few days. And if you're willing to talk about that or help me understand what Hamilton Wenham is doing, would be helpful in being able to connect back with my constituents that have asked me for some guidance on this.
Well, I think that sort of the conversation you had joined this meeting in, I think it was part of that is whether or not we're looking at, by taking that April break, it gives our district a good opportunity to assess what's been going on and, how we need to pivot. We can, hear from our teachers, our parents, and see what they like and what needs to change. And that's why I was definitely saying that I think it's important that we take that April break, so we have that time that we don't have to be doing 3 things at once, and we can actually spend a few days assessing where we are and where we should be going. Dr. Kuchenberger, I didn't mean to jump in, but so.
Representative Hill, I wish you were on the meeting when we had our student rep report, because Tom Kane, who's one of our seniors, shed some light on the student perspective of the work that we've been doing. Our phase 1 rollout was focused primarily on making and maintaining healthy, positive connections with all of our students. We did share on, I'm just trying to look at the calendar. Gosh, seems like it's been so long. On March 16th, we shared a variety of resources, probably too many resources to our parents, I would say. It was overwhelming in a lot of ways. But the very next day, even that evening, we were already starting to launch our remote learning website that we did officially launch last week. And so what that has done is allowed there to be one place that all students and families can come to as like the jumping off point. Students have been engaging with their teachers in either Google Classroom for the upper grades 6 through 12 or a platform called Seesaw in the lower elementary grades. So things are really starting to ramp up in terms of actually the implementation of our remote learning plan. We are focused on enrichment and deepening of learning, but also introducing new content if and when it's appropriate and students are ready. Some of the other things we're thinking about is what is the professional development that staff needs. So our library media specialists have planned and have facilitated. They have, last I counted, 17 Zoom kind of workshops for teachers at varying levels to be able to engage with various types of technological tools that may be utilized. We're also working really closely with our special educators and support staff to start to think about what can individualized remote learning plans look like for students who have moderate to severe disabilities. And so I'm really anticipating that we're going to see a ton of innovation and creativity over the next few weeks as our teachers and our staff really get settled into this new way of teaching and learning. We're also still trying to think about different social aspects and the social needs. So our counselors are connecting with students and they have schedules so that we're trying to make sure that we can account for every single student. And even if it's a family to tell us that they're not going to be engaging in any remote learning, we're still trying to make sure that a staff member, a principal is connecting with that family and just asking what do you need? What's working well? What supports can we offer? So as part of our website that we launched, which is all right on our COVID-19 resources and information site, we have a feedback form. And so we're encouraging folks to give us feedback. What's working on the platform? What could we be doing differently? And then as a North Shore, this is sort of our phase 2, what we're currently in terms of rolling out our remote learning plan. For phase 3, which officially kicks off on April 6th here on the North Shore, that's a date that we agreed to. We're looking at can we provide more of a week at a glance so that families have more flexibility? Because what we're learning is that as more people are getting sick, more and more people are going to be directly connected to COVID-19, and reminding ourselves that this is a health crisis. This is not an education crisis. It's a health crisis. And so first things, we know that people want stability through education because it's something that's familiar and they want that structure. But at the same time, everyone processes traumatic events in different ways. And so we're trying to have flexibility and compassion and empathy along the way as well. So learning a lot. We're learning a lot as we go. We're going to keep getting better every day. I know that our teachers are really committed to, I think my worry is that they're trying to take on too much in a lot of ways because that's just the nature of educators, and particularly here in Hamilton Wenham, and wanting to make sure that they're also making time for self-care and connecting with each other. And we're checking in with our staff who may be vulnerable or alone in this really isolating and scary time.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah.
That's helpful.
And Julie, did we need to make any technology available to families, or did we find that most families had what was needed?
So we've been delivering all kinds of stuff to families.
Okay.
We've been delivering technology. I think we've deployed 80 devices so far, not because in some cases because they don't have technology in the home or they don't have enough. I mean,
if you have twins, you need 2. Yeah.
Right. And so we're also trying to make a mix of online and, offline materials. So that's been the hardest part is, teachers are wanting to come in and be able to prep materials, print packets, get things out of their classroom. And we're really trying to keep everyone home and say, how can we think about that differently? So what is that thing that you think you need from your classroom? Is there a way for us to get it to you in a different way? And also thinking if you go and get that specialized material from your classroom, the students on the other side of the screen aren't necessarily going to have that same access. So look around your house. What can you use to provide that OT or that PT or whatever it is that support that we're trying to think about. Also, we've been working, Brad, I'm sure to partner with Accord Food Pantry to provide meals to families. And we were relieved to see that the USDA guidelines had been adjusted so that districts like ours that are under the 50% of free and reduced lunch may be able to be reimbursed. But I still don't think that's the right solution, because then that would require us getting all of our food service staff back in the kitchens. We'd have to start getting deliveries again and shipments again. And a lot of these folks are older. And so they're that higher risk population. And it just doesn't seem for what we would be reimbursed that that would be the right option for Hamilton Wenham. We're still exploring that with Accord Food Pantry to say, like, can we maybe do a donation drive or something to sustain that partnership? Because it allows us to, and Michelle Horgan could speak more specifically to exactly what they're doing, but folks are actually getting bags of groceries so they can make and prepare meals at home, which I think is better than us bagging breakfast and lunch and folks having to come and pick that up daily. Just the sheer amount of human exposure in that model, I think is not worth the risk at this point.
I love the updates that we're getting from Accord on Facebook, so keep it up. People are looking and people are watching.
Yep.
You know, I will say that we live in a very generous community, and it's overwhelming how the people have responded and with their financial donations. And again, as Julie said, we're trying to keep everyone healthy and safe. And so financial donations are that's what we're using now to help with the lunch programs and our elderly program and our weekly distribution to our 400 plus clients. So thank you. It's a good partnership. So Julie said it does make sense. If this district is not going to be reimbursed 100% for money for food preparation, then it's best that Accord work with the school district and with our communities. So we're all in this together, which is great. So,
and it's not just technology and meals that we're supplying families with. So we had our facilities and maintenance team delivered a large piece of specialized equipment to a family today. So we have the student uses a certain type of walker that we have at the school. They wanted to be able to continue that therapy and work at home. So that was delivered to their home today as well. So basically what we're saying is tell us what you need, reach out, tell us what you're struggling with as a family in supporting your children at home, and then let us, think creatively about how we can help. And so far, I think we've been able to provide solutions to anyone who's reached out.
Thank you. That's the only question
I didn't even know all that.
Thank you so much, Brad. We know that this is a really busy time for you and that you're working hard every day, and now you're working late into the night, and we appreciate that.
Thank you very much. And if I can just give a PSA, if anybody needs anything, please call our offices, Senator Tarr's office or mine. We're here to help. We're here to give as much information as we can, even if it's not state related. Right now, a lot of the questions, are around the federal bill and not a state bill. And we're trying to get as much information as we can. So please don't hesitate to give us a call.
Brad, have you guys talked about MCAS yet? I thought there was an update supposed to be coming Monday or something, but I didn't.
So we haven't gotten that discussion yet with the secretary or the commissioner. We have to do this legislatively, is my understanding. So the discussions are taking place as we speak. But as of today, no bill has been filed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us, Brad.
Julie, would you say we would advocate for that? Would you say we would advocate for that?
What's that? To delay or postpone MCAS?
Yes.
I think everyone will be fine if we don't do MCAS for a year.
Great.
And I think that's where the discussion is going, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks,
All right,
Brad.
bye-bye.
You're free for dinner now.
Thank you.
So,
Bye-bye.
Is that a Russ Webster behind you, Representative Hill?
I don't even know.
That's all right.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we're getting so far into our meeting tonight. Now for a light conversation, the human resources supporting during extended school closure. We spoke to this 2 days ago, and it seems like the information is outdated already. I don't know how everybody else sort of feels, but I don't know, Julie, Vinny, do one of you sort of want to take the lead on this? So.
Sure. So Vinny and I have been looking at the cost savings analysis during this extended school closure and are trying to get to some information to you that can quantify sort of, you know, what are the continuing costs and what potential savings are there, if any. So we're working on that. And one of the things that we have decided to do from the very beginning of the closure was to continue to pay all of our employees. Those are our contracted employees and our hourly employees. That includes, and there's several different categories. So if we think about it sort of by collective bargaining agreements, you have all of your teachers and professional staff under one collective bargaining agreement. Those folks are certainly working full on, probably 150% daily as we're transitioning to this remote learning environment. We then have our office personnel collective bargaining group that includes, and some of these folks are hourly and some of these are salaried folks, but that includes all of our office support staff in the central office and in the schools. And then we have our custodial team. Our teaching assistants are not part of a collective bargaining group, but those folks are continuing to be paid and engaging with students and staff in a variety of ways. Our custodians were working, they were in the buildings, disinfecting the buildings, making sure they were safe for us to invite staff back in to get materials that they needed. Staff have had two opportunities per building, I believe, to come in and get materials. Then they disinfected the schools all over again, and we completely, at this point, have shut down all of the schools and are asking our custodial staff to stay home, just given the severity of the situation. With that being said, our Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operation has been designing some professional learning opportunities. So each custodian has received a Chromebook, and we've assured that they all have connectivity. So they're working on various trainings that would normally happen like during the April break. So, every year they have to have the asbestos training and the bloodborne pathogens trainings and things like that. And so we're designing those types of professional learning opportunities for those folks. I spoke a little bit earlier about some of the professional development that we're offering to teachers and to our other support staff. So I'll share my screen here again, just to show you. You all have seen by now, as parents in the district, our student-facing, parent-facing webpage. This is a new webpage that's being designed by Alan, our Director of IT, and Johanna Wilson, one of our high school teachers. And so here's all those trainings that I was talking about earlier, where folks can come right on and see what are we offering, who is it designed for. Getting started is sort of like I'm just learning, and then there's intermediate level trainings for folks. So that's embedded in this website, along with, if you're starting to use Seesaw, here's how you get started with that. I think I just have too many tabs open here, so it's slow to load. But then there's training videos that are embedded within each site. If you're using Zoom as a tool, here's how you get started. There's sort of like this little guide for teachers and infographic, and then there's trainings embedded in here. We have a variety of other ed tech tools and resources. So this is something that's just for our staff that's being designed. So in alignment with the commissioner's recommendation, we are continuing to and would recommend that we continue to pay all of our employees. For a variety of reasons. One, they're our people and they're our most valuable resource. And one day we are going to be back in school and we're going to need all of these people. So that's one main reason. Also, this is a really kind of unique opportunity for us to do a lot of the things that we always are saying we wish we had time to do. And so we're trying to think about how do we maximize, once we kind of get settled into our remote learning model, how do we maximize the potential of really growing our staff and bringing them back even stronger than they were before we left for the school closure. Some school districts across the Commonwealth, some school committees, I should say, have voted on whether or not to continue to pay all employees. You're going to discuss this a little bit later when you talk about the MOA with the teachers, the Hamilton Wenham Education Association. It's really, I just wanted to share with you that some school committees are voting to continue to pay their employees. Others are not. You've already approved the budget. You've already allocated the funds for these purposes. So it's not necessary or required, but it can send a strong message to the community if you so choose to. And again, my recommendation would be to continue to pay our people. They are working, they are engaging with students and colleagues in a variety of ways, and we will need them if and when school comes back. If and when we come back to school.
Excuse me. Is Vinny still on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, hey Vinny. You said something earlier. I know we had this conversation the other day a little bit, and okay, I can't remember if you were on the line or not. In sort of where I felt it without getting into the earlier tonight, though, you seem to have or allude to something, and I'm sorry it's escaping me now because so much has happened since then, about sort of the cost of us shutting down, of being shut down. Sort of, it seemed like you're trying to say where it could end up being more expensive for us. Am I sort of right in hearing that?
Yeah, so the biggest driver of that is the food service department. Usually none of those employees are on our payroll. They're kind of the only group of employees that now are moving on to the district side of the payroll, as they're not selling any food to recover funds from it. So it ultimately will cost us more money in the payroll realm.
Okay. The other thing I was sort of, and I don't want to be careful how I ask this because I don't want to say anything sort of out of place, but like there are certain things that are, not going on day to day that I imagine, because I know I've had some people reach out to me, asking me sort of about this in like, how are we going to cut costs? And I think it had more to do with sort of what, FY21 is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's stuff, what could be going on here? I think of, I don't want to jump ahead because this is a conversation that's going to happen later that I want to bring up, but there are certain things that, that even though we're paying for this, the food service, and we're not bringing that money back in the sale of actual lunches, that there are other things that we're not sort of paying for that can be absorbed without sort of setting up panic.
3 million sheets of paper.
So, right. So
3 million sheets of paper.
That all depends if we come back on the 4th or not, though. So
right.
If schools close for the year, yes, there will be some savings from not buying paper and materials. Right now, there's about $100,000 left in supplies for the year. So it all depends on whether or not the May 4th date is realized.
And it's pointed to if we have staff who need supplies at home, if we're going to make sure that we get them. So that might be using Amazon or some other less conventional form of kind of purchasing than what we currently do, but we need to be open to that too.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm just sort of trying to bring it out here for the public because I know we've sort of talked about this offline a little bit, and I'm just sort of trying to just let people know that this is something that we're looking at really at the in the most micro of detail to see that, and it's going to be something that we're looking at every day because the information is changing daily.
Well, and a couple of other big things too to think about is, of course, like daily substitutes, right? That's a cost that we're not incurring right now. We have several positions that are vacant and we're not filling them right now. So there are some human resource kind of trade-offs, if you will.
So Julie, go ahead, Ty.
Oh, so this is Gene. So Vinny, do you know if the transportation contract is by use, or are we still paying them the regular fee?
So the state has really given us guidance to continue to pay them, but I'm in a little bit of preliminary round on renegotiating a lower fee to at least give back all the fuel costs.
Yeah.
But this is, if I had to take a guess, it's really only going to be about $15,000 if I had to take a guess.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that was an interesting part of the discussion today with those that we'll get reimbursed for some of that from the state because it's, we'll get reimbursed for some of that because we're a regional district, and it also affects our reimbursables for next year. So I know Vinny's working really hard on the details around that.
Right, because it's next year is based on this year, right? Well, you get screwed twice. So Julie, I had a question for you, which is, do you know if the town boards of health are tapping into the school nurses at all?
So yes, they have been asked to work with the local boards of health. I'm not 100% sure what the logistics are of that at the moment, but that's something that we're looking into.
Okay, because I don't know how, so the reason why I asked is because my wife is a floating part-time school nurse in Andover.
Mm-hmm.
She has some responsibilities to Andover, but she's volunteered to the Hamilton Board of Health for her services, right? Because school nurses are basically a public health nurse, right? So the same skill sets are there. And she was told by the Hamilton public health nurse that the town manager wanted to first use the school nurses before they start asking for volunteers. And I was a little surprised by that because we're still a regional district. So Wenham, so you have to sort of like, how do you allocate the resources against Wenham? And also these school nurses aren't necessarily local to Hamilton, right? They may want to volunteer to their home district or their hometown needs. So I was just kind of curious to see, because they are a resource and an asset that can be used in this time. Right?
Well, one of our school nurses is the public health nurse in Wenham. And then our head nurse is volunteering, I believe, in her hometown, or is working in her hometown. So there is some of that going on. So they're just in the very formative stages as far as I know. I know that they're all willing to step up and help, but I don't have the specifics just yet.
Julie, one thing, can you stop the screen share unless you think you're going to show something really soon? And then the other part is, I feel like people need more information before we make a decision about voting, but I would feel more comfortable about voting that we're not going to pay people when and if that should ever come up. But I think, it's been pretty clear that the Department of Education wants us to be able to reopen, and the only way we can effectively do that is to continue to have our staff supported. Mm-hmm. But I think we need more information before we make any sort of a vote based, because I had sort of some different opinions about some things, and I was convinced by what Vinny had told me about them that we should continue to pay, but I just feel like we need numbers before we make a vote, I guess is what I would say.
I agree. I totally agree. Are we paying stipends for the things that aren't happening, or are we still paying those stipends?
Oh, you mean like bus stipends and stuff like that?
No, like after, for coaching right now, or for after school stuff, or before school.
That's all going to be part of the MOA conversation later.
Okay.
That we'll go into more detail there.
So what kind of numbers are you looking for, Michelle? Just how much each group costs?
Well, I think before I vote that I'm going to pay something, I want to know how much it's going to cost. Yeah, and I think for most of these people, it's not any new cost. It's already budgeted. But for some people, there may be a cost.
Correct.
So we have numbers if you want to ask us your questions.
I just think that if we're going to vote something like that, that we should have numbers. And the other thing is I don't really think that that was foreseen on our agenda. So, and I also definitely don't feel comfortable in saying we're going to vote forever, because our situation may change if all of a sudden we have some 9C cuts that come down and we're not going to get the state aid that we thought we were going to get. I would be completely comfortable with voting on a monthly basis or a couple of week basis. And, you know, eventually we're going to get to the whole school year by doing a monthly basis pretty quickly, but, you know.
So what that means is that we're going to continue to pay people as we have been until there's some other action that's taken by the committee.
That's what I think it means, yeah.
Yep.
And we should emphasize that the committee is not considering that at this time because we don't have information that would lead us to make that kind of decision.
Yeah, I more
Right.
just wanted to, I didn't want you to hear that other school committees were voting on this issue and feeling like somehow you were not being given the opportunity to. Again, legally, there's not a requirement, but that is certainly a choice you could choose to make.
I also think that we put ourselves in a little bit of a bind just in the way this agenda was put together, in that a very big part of this conversation is something that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. But I can see where, you know, what Michelle is saying, in that it makes no sense to sort of bind us to voting if, in fact, you know, we have to have another vote in another month because of other circumstances, situations that have arisen, that have changed, you know, unfortunately have changed the way we need to vote. So right now, sort of keeping business as usual is probably the best way to go, and I agree. Sorry, you
So
got
the
loud there for a second.
next thing is the graduation schedule, which
Yeah, no, I know. I just had muted myself because it got loud here for a second. So yeah, so now the class of 2020 graduation schedule, which is, I know, something that's on all of our mind on sort of how we're going to handle this and what we're thinking right now to take care of our seniors.
So I can introduce this a little bit. I asked the high school principal to pull together the milestone events for the class of 2020 so that you all could see, you know, what had been scheduled. So obviously the National Honor Society ceremony, we had rescheduled that, and now we've postponed it again. And all of these other events, we haven't made any definitive decisions about. As I mentioned earlier, when Tom was on, I started talking with Principal Tracy about, you know, ways that we can engage students to think creatively about some of these things. And I do think we should make a decision about graduation, if not, you know, not necessarily today, but do we want to at least be able to say that we're going to have a graduation at whatever point that can occur, so that families know and so that students know. I think that, you know, these are things that our kids are thinking about and wondering about. So as much clarity as we can provide them, the better. But just wanted to kind of put it out there for discussion and let the community know that we're thinking about these events and thinking about ways to be innovative and creative. No real action to take.
Thank you for working with Eric and just giving hope. I think that's the most important thing, because we are in such a lockdown situation day to day. So it's nice to look forward and be hopeful. And
I had actually
putting it
had
out
a
here.
couple ideas that pop into my head that would be pretty fun that I'll share with you offline at some point, Julie. Just, you know, trying to do something cool and fun sort of during this crazy time. Yeah, it just came to me like within the last day or so. Anyone else have anything to say before we move on?
Write it down, David.
So here we go. Next up is postponing the school committee election pursuant to Governor Baker's state of emergency declaration. We got a just a reminder from the Wenham town clerk that, you know, we put in our own warrant for school committee elections, what I didn't know before that she actually had mentioned in the email was that our elections are actually covered under the town warrant already, and that we actually didn't need to do our own. I found that pretty interesting. And
I think we should run that by legal because it is in our regional agreement that we're supposed to
so,
call a warrant. So
yeah, I mean, we have. I think we should look into it as well because there's no reason in sort of having to do it if we don't need to. Excuse me, but obviously the town has put off their elections, and I don't think there isn't a date yet, right? They're still trying to figure out how they're doing that. So I think at this point we just probably just want to make a motion that, you know, the school committee is going to postpone our elections, excuse me, just to coincide with whatever the towns decide to do. Do you think the wording needs to be any more specific, Michelle, or?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
How does that relate to Ty? Would he just stay on as the
So
appointed?
yeah, Ty and Jean would get an
That's right,
extension
Jean.
for.
They keep pulling you back in just when you're fighting to get out.
You thought I was kidding when I said I wasn't going to let you leave.
Can I hold the election tomorrow?
So I think because the regional agreement says that Ty is appointed until the next election, that he has the same status as Jean, that he remains until the election is held and determines the whoever's going to be the new members, or
Correct.
next members, I should say, is the right word. So there was specific wording, I think, that has to be used, but I'm not sure. I was going to see if it was in maybe one of the selectmen's packets. Do we want to talk about something else, and I can look that up? Okay.
I'll unmute myself, sorry. Just give me a second, because I just.
Do you want me to, it's donations that's supposed to be next. Would you like me to make a motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just found that I have too many tabs open. It's trying to I'm used to
But I
like
can
multiple
tell, so let's
screens.
move this along. I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee accept the donations for the Helen, and I apologize if I say this wrong, Krasinski Scholarship
Krasinski.
from Richard and Karen Nosek for $100 and Philip and Barbara Arndt for $200.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Ty.
Yes.
Julie almost called you. Stacy.
Yes.
Michelle Horgan.
Yes.
Michelle Bailey.
Michelle Bailey is a yes.
Peter Walsick.
Yes.
Jean Lee.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the motion? I had to step out for a little bit.
It was the donation, accepting the donations for the Helen Brzezinski Scholarship Fund.
Right. Yes.
And David Polito's a yes. So thank you to the Nosek and Arndt families for their donations. Really appreciative. All right, Brad Hill's there. So at this point, Julie, the superintendent report.
Sure, I just have a couple of things. On behalf of our athletics department, I was asked to read a winter sports update. This is normally something we would celebrate in person, obviously, and invite many of the mentioned students to attend. But we still want to acknowledge them, even though we're not able to be physically in the same space. So I'm just going to read a statement that was in the packet for those that are listening and watching at home. And here it goes. Hamilton Wenham would like to acknowledge the following teams and individuals. After starting the year with a 1-5 record, Hamilton Wenham boys basketball won 12 consecutive games en route to their 6th Cape Ann League title in 7 years. The team also won 2 tight tournament games and advanced to the North Sectional semis. Coach Mike DiMarino won Coach of the Year for the 4th time in 5 years at the school. Gymnastics won their 3rd consecutive league title on the strength of an undefeated season. The Generals routinely set individual and team records during their remarkable season. Our head coach, Chris Van Way, won his 2nd Coach of the Year award in 3 years. We'd also like to make sure that we congratulate our teammates from Manchester Essex and Penguin Hall who participated in this in our team co-op. Hockey qualified for the state tournament for the 3rd time in a row. When the current crop of seniors were freshmen, it was the first year back as a varsity program. The team went 0-18-2. This year, they faced Newton South in the tournament, a school roughly 4 times our size, and dropped a heartbreaker in double overtime with 10 seconds left. These seniors will certainly be missed. Finally, girls basketball, under the direction of first-year coach Mark Cole, qualified for the tournament for the 3rd time in 4 years. They hung tough with North Reading, who went on to become North champions before bowing out. In 4 years, this great group of seniors who played for 3 different head coaches went to the North Finals, won a league title, and qualified for the tournament 3 times. An amazing accomplishment. Finally, senior Calvin Dalton, who wrestles as a guest in our co-op with Salem High School, had another amazing year, coming off of last year's state championship season. This year, once again, Calvin was a league champ, a state finalist, a New England finalist, and had qualified for nationals. Congratulations to all our student athletes and their coaches, and thank you to our co-op partners, Manchester Essex, Penguin Hall, and Salem, for their support during this very successful winter season. With warmest regards, Craig Genualdo, our athletic director. So we're super proud of all of those accomplishments, and I appreciate, I wanted to read that directly because I think that Craig's tone and the way he speaks about our athletes and our coaches really just exemplifies his passion for what he does, and we're so lucky to have him on our team.
So I just wanted to add that Craig did send out a follow-up email just congratulating sophomore diver Micah Katz. Micah won the Cape Ann League Diving Championship, breaking the long-standing league record. So
Thank you, but I forgot that one.
That's okay. It was a separate email.
All right, and then just in terms of our enrollment report, enrollment this month as of April 1 today is static. We have the same number of students at each grade level and each building. Our total enrollment is at 1,839 students. The 3rd highest that we've had 3 months with that many, 4 months with that many students enrolled. So we fluctuate a couple students here and there each month, but we're hovering right around 1,839 students for those who like to hear about the enrollment. The last 2 things are really just about registration. So obviously we have postponed kindergarten registration. We're currently in the process, Alan Topier, our IT director, and myself, of thinking about how do we do this online. We started talking about this in January, and we're planning to do it next year. But given the extended closure and what's looking like to be an even longer closure, we're beginning to get the ball moving and seeing if we can get something launched here in the next couple of weeks so we can start to get those kindergarten numbers in, which of course is a important information to have in terms of staffing and things like that. And then for school choice registration, we announced earlier that we were going to be accepting siblings for the middle school, but that seats were limited because our enrollment numbers are much higher this year. We're at our max preferred numbers at the middle school. We have 4, last I knew, we had 4 siblings who were choicing into the middle school, which of course we'll accept because their older siblings are already choice students. And then several students that are on the wait list. All families who are choicing or wanting to choice in at the middle school were notified that that decision will be made in the middle of August. So we're sticking to that plan. And all of our high school students who have been selected to choice into the Hamilton-Wenham Regional High School have been notified, and we'll let them know. Again, if we can get kindergarten registration online, we will also be able to do that school choice registration online. So hopefully we can pull that together in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Might take a little bit longer than that, but we'll see. So That's the status for registration right now. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. I actually don't have a report, so we'll go right over to the committee
Can
reports.
I add one thing that we forgot to?
Sure, Stacy.
It was,
Yes.
sorry.
No
Sorry,
problem.
I just want to recognize from sports that I think we forgot that was recent because of not being able to have even a recognition yet. But in the Salem News, the girls basketball all-stars, Madison Rivers was named as an all-star. She's a senior and point guard for our basketball team.
Great, thank you. I appreciate good news. All right, so the committee reports. We're waiting on Michelle. The Capital and Financial Planning Subcommittee. Do you have anything to report or next meeting date?
Our next meeting date is just per my minutes, or I was going through, was from March 3rd, that our next capital planning meeting is April 7th.
All right, so Michelle, you ready? Because you have the hot seat either way, either coming back with that info or we're ready for the policy subcommittee.
Yeah, we're not clear if there's exact wording required, but the legislation says that you can postpone the elections if you are concerned that you would not have poll workers. So we could say that we're concerned that we would not have poll workers due to the state of emergency and the regulations, and then we should just say that we're postponing it indefinitely, and then that way we can have like a joint meeting and talk about it.
Sounds great. Can,
While
we're doing that, I'll go back to our agenda and pull up the policy.
Michelle, why don't you give that, why don't you do that?
Okay.
Please, sorry.
All right, so I move that the Hamilton-Wenham Regional School Committee votes to delay our election scheduled for April the 9th, 2020 to a date indefinite in the future due to our belief that we would not have an adequate number of poll workers due to the current state of emergency, which was declared by Governor Baker.
Second.
Stacy Metternich.
Yes.
So, Ty Prima.
Yes.
Michelle Horgan.
Yes.
Jean Lee.
Yes.
Peter Walczyk.
Yes.
Michelle Bailey. Everyone switched on me.
Michelle Bailey, yes.
David Politosi, yes. I got everybody right. I go by in order, but then the screen shuffled on me, which messed everything up.
Yes, you got everybody.
All right, great. Thank you. Now just give Michelle a second to pull up the policy.
Can I say something to Jean?
Sure, Peter.
He's holding up his phone.
Can't hear it, Peter.
So,
Okay.
Did it work?
so.
Yeah.
You don't know how appropriate that is. I was this close, this close.
All right, so do we want to go in? Let's just go in order. Okay,
Yeah.
so G, so all of these are first readings. G is, okay, trying to open G. G, I think, is personnel policies, I think. So we had a little bit of a delay on this because we had some questions about the end of them, but we didn't have originally a lot of personnel policies. A lot of these are basically adopted out of the MASC's models. So the first one is personnel goals. That's pretty basic. Things that are important, the equal opportunity, ethics and conflict of interest, state law, staff conduct, straight out of the MASC, gifts and solicitations by staff, is out of the ethics. Okay, new one. Online fundraising and solicitations, crowdfunding. So we have decided to adopt the MASC's policy, which basically says there needs to be a process put in place. So basically teachers cannot use things like donors choose or can't think of
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe, those kinds of things. Unless some sort of process is put in place.
Can I ask though, what about athletics with there was something that went around a couple of years ago, email GoFundMe type of a thing, that a third party that was managing it for the coaches.
Teachers cannot do it. Staff cannot do it. I would say a coach could not, maybe, I don't know, that's a little, the idea is that what our schools need to operate should be provided by our budget and through our administrative process, and that we shouldn't be outsourcing curriculum and supplies. That was basically the concept behind it.
And there's also the question about, is it considered a gift over $50 and things like that?
Right. And so I'm all about getting donations and partnerships with the communities, and I would totally be on board with this. But in consulting with other school committees and with the MASC, it opens up too many opportunities to violate ethics, and also just a lot of work to, like, all of those donations have to be accepted by the school committee, and how are we going to regulate them, and how are we going to know? So if indeed a superintendent wants to do that, we could put a process in place. But what we don't want is teacher A deciding that she wants to teach the latest new novel, get a donation of those for their classroom, teach the new novel when it's outside of the curriculum. If we want to do that, we have a process for that, and it's not. So now we're up for feedback now.
Well, I was gonna say, so this is a policy saying that we need to set up a policy, right?
Process.
A process, but as opposed to just not having, it's, I guess we don't have anything like this, so it's just a free for all for now. So I don't see this as being limiting. It's just saying that we, it's just saying that we need to create a process should something want to come to us. So I really don't see the harm in adopting this.
The other thing we did is we looked up Hamilton Wenham to see what was on Donor Choose, and there was only one project. So we're talking about one project, and we may be in a situation where we are providing adequately funding for classrooms, so teachers aren't feeling the need to do crowdfunding, or just in general, our parents are very generous in what they give and are giving directly to a classroom.
Well, in the one project that we found, we are funding it partially. So I think it was just a matter of teachers knowing that you could ask to expand that subscription.
Yeah, so.
And we're talking about policy KCD right now, correct?
No, we're in G.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
GEBD.
Yeah, it's almost like a word. GBEBD.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Michelle, does this policy contemplate the friends groups when they set up the class parents? They often will set up. They will often ask the teachers, "What are your classroom requests?" They set up an Amazon wish list, basically. Does this policy contemplate that?
I don't think
Because it's not really crowd-funded.
That's not crowdfunding. This is more those other types of platforms.
And it also seems, it says the employee shall not use. It doesn't say the surrogates for the employee shall not use, but I think
Okay. I just need to read the policy more clearly then. Okay. I needed a chance to read it beforehand, but I'll do that.
Do people feel comfortable with this? Do they have feedback they want to give us?
Just the other thing that we considered when we were talking about this policy is also what happens if it's only partially funded, then what happens to those funds that were raised, you know.
Or if a trip is canceled or something.
Right.
That's a good question, because I know that that was brought up. What if, by legal, what if, something happens and it's not totally funded? Where does the money then go to?
Or the teacher goes away, or.
Yeah, I mean, there were
Has the money collected and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, technically the money would be returned because you couldn't fulfill the purpose of what the money was donated for to begin with.
That's true.
Right. So the thing about those crowdfunded sources, crowdfunded platforms, some of them do this, some of them don't, but you only earn the donation, you only earn the money that was raised if you meet the goal, right? There are other ones where if you don't meet the goal, you earn whatever has been raised up to that point. Right. So those true crowdfunded platforms, so it kind of depends on what the thing is. But technically, even if someone gave like a cash donation, if you can't fulfill the terms of that donation, then you technically would have to give it back.
Right. And we just, like I said, we just didn't know.
Yeah.
We wanted to avoid all those.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Multiple what ifs.
But we need to peel back the onion and understand all the layers before we allow our staff to do it.
Yep. No, I understand.
So, okay.
And
All
that's wordy. that part of this is so wordy.
Well, it's a new policy and it's a new platform. And so this is what the MSC's legal is written to kind of cover those bases. So drug-free workplace policy, we already had that. Tobacco use on school property by staff members is prohibited. We only were prohibiting it for students, I believe, but this is more specific. It was in the students section, so now it's in both sections, so everybody knows no tobacco on property. Staff personal safety, security and safety. I'm trying to remember if this is. Yeah, this is not what I was thinking about. If you have an accident and you're a staff member, you need to fill out a report. That kind of goes towards workman's comp. Domestic violence leave policy. One thing we'd like for you to know is this was already in our policy, but you have the option of choosing if someone needs to take domestic abuse leave and they are the victim of the abuse, you can allow them to be paid, or you can vote for them not to be paid. Our current policy does allow for them to be paid, and so we are continuing to affirm that. Family medical leave, staff participation in political activities. This was there already. Personnel records, you can go get your record if you want to see it. If anybody wants me to stop, I'm happy to discuss any of these. Okay. Staff complaints and grievances, basically follow the contract. Professional staff positions. I think this is if we were to add somebody like a new BCBA, that would have to be approved by the school committee. Let's see, professional staff salary schedules will be put together, part of the budget. Of course, we would do that, part of the contract. Employment of principals. This is the one that we've been talking about, that the school committee should approve the first contracts that a principal has related to the benefits and the salary that they receive, and that we should probably put together some sort of model contract that we would use for equity purposes. So I'm pausing in case anybody has anything they want to say about that. This is GCBB.
Would this be considered though an overreach a little bit on us, since this falls under the guidance of the superintendent, because the superintendent is hiring this person and it's within the budget that we approved that she or he would then implement?
It's in the law that we would approve this information. So to me, it's not an overreach because the law states that we would do that. But when I read the law, I believe it's the first contract. Like, it's not like, I believe it's the first contract only. Julie, did you get that from this policy, the first contract? Versus.
You're on mute, Julie.
No, and I'm actually surprised that this is in here because I didn't think that we were done with this one yet.
I think we're done with the policy, but we decided we would do it for a first reading. And if the policy was approved, then we had work to do.
Okay.
That's my recollection. Is that what you recall?
Yeah, this basically is just restating what the law says.
Right.
And
so if the committee approves this, we will then have work to do, which would be to make these model contracts.
And we saw that there were many other districts that have this policy, but they don't necessarily have model contracts publicly available that we could access.
Okay, moving on. I don't remember this pay plans one. I think this has to do with stipends, right? We would pay people extra. There's a policy about how we would go about recruiting our staff, policy about hiring our staff. We don't discriminate. When we hire substitutes, they're expected to do work. They're not a babysitter, basically is what it says. We have a philosophy about staff development. We have a policy about professional teacher status, which comes during the third year. But I believe we kept in that the superintendent could make it after 2 years at their discretion.
It's
Yeah,
a 201.
Discretion, because that's in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Professional staff assignments and transfers, basically administration has the right to have teachers moved, but the teacher has a right to meetings. There's an evaluation of staff according to the teacher evaluation. That covers a couple of them here. When you retire, by January, the superintendent would let the school committee know who is retiring. That's sort of a budgetary thing. There's a policy about what happens when a staff member needs to be suspended or dismissed. There's a policy that prohibits teachers from tutoring their own students. Then there's this support staff positions. So support staff includes anybody who is not covered under a contract of any kind, whether that's a bargaining agreement or an individualized contract like a principal would have. So we consider this to be our paraprofessionals, our teachers' assistants, and the people who make lunch. And I think some of the staff in the administrative offices would be covered by this. So that's what these people are. So they work, they get paid, they get evaluated. They're part of the Essex County retirement system. If they need to be dismissed or suspended, they have rights from the policy. And that would be it. I'm not hearing any feedback, so I'm going to say that.
I was fine with policy G. Just, want to make sure the red line stuff and what you're taking out was based on the MASC recommendations, which I'm sure it is, but I just want to go through that. Yes, I went through all 100 pages of it.
Yeah, mostly it was either taking our policy and adding MASC's wording, or taking their wording and shooting ours out. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That no, looks good.
So now I got to go figure out how to go back on the iPad. She'd be so proud of me learning how to use an iPad. I'm not an Apple person.
Did you do a motion to approve the first reading?
I don't know. I think usually we just get feedback. And if we don't get feedback, then we come back to a second, but.
Yeah, we usually haven't done it, but now I can't remember because it seems like a while. Usually it's just getting feedback and then you get the approval after the second.
Yeah, there is a policy on approving policies somewhere in here, and I don't think it says anything about motions.
From what I remember, we didn't do it until the second reading. It was just based on, what people said on each policy. And it has been a while since we've gone through policies.
All right, I think I figured this out. Okay.
This is when a computer is a lot easier with Zoom and.
So much easier. Okay, I have to go back to the agenda to get the next policy. Okay, so is the next one H?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So H is negotiations. It's a section we don't currently have, so everything you see is new, and it's directly from the MASC. And I'm trying to get to our agenda, so sorry.
That looked fine to me too. I didn't have any questions, just making sure, knowing what your thoughts were on this.
Oh, there is something in here that we should talk about quickly. So the goals are good. Thank you, Julie, for sharing. So the goals are good. Negotiating, we have the legal status to negotiate. The last policy is the school committee negotiating agent. So this would allow us to hire a third party to negotiate for us. Sometimes school committees will hire a lawyer to do their negotiations for them, which is what we sort of used to do with Naomi. So we were just giving ourselves the authority to hire a third-party negotiator.
Would a third party also be the superintendent, or are we trying to go away from that? Because in the past, a long time ago, we never had the superintendent. It was always legal along with the school committee.
No, the superintendent wouldn't be a third party. The superintendent would be the superintendent.
Yeah.
Third party refers to someone outside of the existing organization and administration.
And that was our thought process here, because it would allow us continuity from contract to contract by having it be like a legal person. Because even if your exact legal counsel changed, you might stay within the same firm, or you'd be able to transfer to a different lawyer versus, yeah. And we also felt that the superintendent, there's a lot of work in negotiating, collecting information about comps and, other contracts and the like. And it would just be better for a third party to gather that information. And the last part is that a superintendent would be a consultant to this third party person. That third party person could get the information from the superintendent as to what needs to be changed, could consult with them so that it would be a little more collaborative. And the last part is it doesn't put the superintendent in a bad position if a negotiation is going poorly. It allows them to maintain their professional status as the leader of the school district without making them also like the bad guy in negotiations.
Yeah, because you know, as a negotiations committee, you can still, you know, speak to the superintendent to get their input without actually having to bring them to the table. And, you know, this policy just gives us the opportunity to bring a third party in. It doesn't, it isn't legally obligating. So
Correct.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you just like, all right, this one's going to be a doozy. We might be better off sort of, you know, handing this one off.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that one. Okay. Now these other ones I can almost do from memory because they were only reviewed yesterday, and they're the ones that I emailed you to please check on your agenda to read. So the first one originally was D4002. Now it's being listed as KCD, gifts and contributions to the schools. So everything you see is highlighted is stuff that the school committee has added to the MASC's policy. I take that back. This is actually liberally borrowed from Manchester, Essex.
Which I noticed that there's verbiage on there that needs to be changed. It says donations to the Manchester Essex Regional School District are tax deductible. So we need to get rid of that.
I tried so hard to get all of those. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
I think we should create policy for them too while we're here. Why not?
See, I'm just showing that I actually did read this policy.
Nope, that's good. So that's in the first paragraph, paragraph 1. It was in there several times. I changed it to school committee several times. So, okay. So basically this says that we recognize it's important to be able to make public-private partnerships, that if someone wants to do fundraising to then make a gift to us, they have to seek our approval before doing that. That gifts are considered to be unrestricted. However, if someone chooses to restrict it, they can come to the school committee and we can approve or disapprove of that donation. And that in the event that someone is going to raise money and anticipation of providing us with a gift of over $50,000, that the school committee and this organization would need to enter into a memorandum of understanding.
Thank you. This is what we were looking for MOU.
So that takes care of those guidelines that you're looking for, Stacy?
Well, we got more. We're not to be outdone. But this is what we're proposing to you.
All right.
Yes, this is what I was looking for to have looked at to help with our MOU, because there's verbiage. So we'll have to change the information on what's in the MOU right now.
Right.
Because we have a policy D, is it 4112?
With it, yes, 4002.
Sorry, 4002, and now it's going to be a policy KCD, and but we can probably just put some of this verbiage as opposed to the policy number in.
So this would need to go to a second reading if people feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, no, it looks good.
Okay.
I'm so excited for the next one.
Mine, as long as we change that, what I had said.
Yeah, I think she took that note.
Yeah, so
I can only see I can only see you two right now, so it seems like we're having a private conversation.
all right. So then the next one is memorials for deceased students and staff.
I love that in 4 years I've been on this school committee, we have done this 4 different times.
But not really, because all we did was add the first sentence.
Yeah.
That's all we did is add the first sentence. And this is in case while going through the process of fundraising for a turf field, anybody was to want to make a large contribution. You know, basically you can get a plaque and this is what it would say.
Is this, all right, so we're that specific? Okay, all right, I didn't pick up on that. Is this based off of our existing language or is this a new?
All we did was add the first sentence.
Okay. All right, so I just remember you and I like being at so many meetings
I think
about this one.
So the second, I think
Yeah,
the is
I
new.
think the second sentence was slightly altered, but I think we took something out about,
It's encouraging
Right.
yes,
scholarships rather than,
other things.
Yeah, no, which is something that we had always sort of tried to get to. So it's nice. Thank you for your tenacity and actually getting the language right. Because like I said, I just remember going through this multiple times and just sort of never walked away from the table happy with it.
Well, we're not thrilled with this one either, but
it's a tricky. I don't think people understand how tricky of a situation it really is and how difficult
Right.
it is.
it's definitely so then the next one policy we felt would be important to review was the naming of a new facility. So our policy was very short. And so we went to the MASC's policy. And basically it says that the school committee decides, and if we are going to decide to name anything built, so whether that's the concession stand or a track or a field or a batting cage or something like that, that we would have a process for picking that name and that it would come through the school committee. There would be a public hearing. Depending on how it was proposed, there might be some involvement by the friends groups and the school improvement councils, so that we're sure that we're doing what the community wants.
One thing about this, I just want to ask, I did not see it on our agenda as an exhibit. So, and maybe I missed it, but when I'm looking right now, the agenda, maybe I'm looking at an old agenda, but it should have been pulled. I didn't see this one exhibit.
Yeah, it went on with the other two, with the other, okay. All three of them went on together.
For some reason, I didn't get it, so I did not review that.
Okay. Do you want me to read it out loud?
No, that's okay. I can pull it up.
It basically says the school committee has the authority to choose the name, that you would have to be consistent with other policies. In other words, we wouldn't have like Coors Stadium because that wouldn't be within the policy of the school district to name things after beverages that our students cannot consume. We would make the information known at a school committee meeting on an agenda. There would be opportunities for the public to comment. Let's see. It should be, the naming should be in writing. The request should be in writing and why that particular facility should be named in that way. That an offer of a financial contribution to the school district may accompany a naming request, but it's not obligated to happen. That we would obviously thank anyone who gave us money. And the last part is that there would be a public comment period on any naming before we voted.
Thank you for going over that. It looks good to me. Sorry, I wasn't able to review that.
So it basically means that the turf careful when they're doing their fundraising. They can't commit to naming anything
Okay.
without school committee approval and a public comment period.
Okay.
You know,
Can I ask the thought behind naming, allowing something to be named without a contribution behind it?
so if you were to pick a new, let's say we were to build a new school and you wanted to name it for
Alger.
Donald Trump, because he's currently the president, you wouldn't require to have a donation with that in order to name it after that person.
You had to pick that one.
It's current.
Yeah.
You
It's
never
just
know. I mean, it's like there's a
Yeah.
zillion JFK school or, you know, Kennedy schools across the country because people name them after that person. It's no different than the Bucher School is named after Bessie Bucher, but it's not because she gave a large donation. It was because people wanted to honor her commitment to the community.
Yeah, I get it. I just think like there's only one building, right? If you're gonna do this, you should go.
Well, but this policy,
I think about it. I think about it very sort of like, you know, for lack of better word, very crassly. You know, because this is an opportunity to actually get some funding for maintenance or an endowment or whatever it might be. But I totally understand where you're going. I get it.
yeah, this is for all facilities forever and ever and ever. So if we were to build a new school, a new building, whatever, it would also apply to that.
Yeah, I get it.
Right, because there's important people without money attached.
Right.
Just saying.
Right.
I know, but in desperate times, you go with people with money.
Well,
I mean, we would welcome the money attached,
right.
but
You know, it's like Reading High School is actually the Reading Veterans Memorial High School. So it's named after veterans, but, and up in Ipswich, their elementary school is named after a veteran. So, you know, there can be reasons why you wouldn't get a monetary donation.
Yeah, I get it. Like I said, I think of it more crassly than a lot of them.
Yeah.
So,
Right. But,
I'll admit that.
but we did choose to review this at this time because we do think it may be possible that there will be some items that the donors might want to have named, and we want to have a
Sure.
process for allowing that to happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great.
Okay, so looks like we'll go to second reading on all of these at our next meeting, so that'll be after the facilities group, it sounds like, is going to meet. But you can just know that it looks like these will come back and be approved on the 15th.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle. Next is negotiation subcommittee meeting. Our next meeting date is April 7th.
Yeah.
Can you guys just double check that you're not double booked on that? Because you can only have one Zoom meeting at a time.
We typically,
We're at 4:30.
finance, we're at 4:30 and finance is at 7 typically. So maybe Jean, Stacy and I will.
You're on
talk
both
later.
of them, so you can't be double booked. Okay, never mind. Okay, sorry.
Oh, good.
All right, on to the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything?
I want to pull voucher number 2885, and also just want to remind everybody to, when we're approving the minutes or looking at them, everybody should be reading those minutes and making sure there's any mistakes, because I just can't go through all of them. And if I've missed minutes, you know, everybody should be looking at them to know what's going on.
Oh, that's not signed.
So, you want me to make a motion?
Please.
I move that the Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee move to approve the consent agenda, taking out the voucher number 2885.
Second, but can I discuss? Well, second. I did sign this on Monday.
Can we get a, don't we want to, before
Discussion?
we do that, can we vote on that motion first and then you can have the discussion, Michelle?
Yes.
Ty Prima.
Have the discussion before you vote?
Yes.
Not
Well,
on
on
a
a consent
consent
agenda, you're actually not supposed to have.
Oh, right, because it's consent, sorry.
After consent is what I have pulled, then I say the reason why. So
Hold on. Michelle, if we vote this, is what you're going to talk about going to affect what we're approving?
Yes. Is Vinny on here too?
well, I've still pulled it, so we can vote the consent agenda, then discuss it, and we can come back and make another motion. That's the
Okay.
way to do it.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. I didn't realize it was the 2885. I'm sorry. That's on me. All right. Ty Prima,
Yes.
Stacy Meredith,
Yes.
Michelle Bailey,
Michelle Bailey, yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Peter Walczyk.
Yes.
David Polito is a yes. All right. So let us discuss
Yes,
2885.
I pulled 2885 because there's no signature on that.
Vinny, is he still on right now?
I'm here.
Is this the one that I signed on Monday?
Yeah, we had a little problem. Don had a problem printing that voucher. I'm not sure why it was submitted to you unsigned, but Michelle and I did sign it on Monday.
Okay, because I did see that your signature was on there, Vinny, but I did not see Michelle Horgan's. So that's why I'm pulling it and want to make sure that it is signed.
I can assure you it's signed. I don't have a copy to give to you right now, but you can pull it and you can approve it next time if you want.
Yeah, let's just table it. Because we don't want to be approving something that's incorrect.
And we still have all the checks and everything, so it's fine.
Yeah. All right.
So I just want you guys to know that, as you saw, there was, I don't know if anybody read those minutes, but there was a huge chunk of minutes that we're getting caught up on. And so everybody needs to kind of go through those minutes too and look for any errors, because we are responsible for, what goes in as meetings minutes as well. So everybody is responsible for that. And I know there's some minutes coming up that I wasn't at the meeting, so would love it if people can start reviewing those minutes, because we're really trying to catch up on these minutes per our OML. We're very behind.
I read through them today. I didn't see anything.
All right. Excuse me. Topics for future meetings. So it's so hard to look 2 weeks into the future.
I have one thing that I would like to add to our next meeting or to discuss. It's the Friend of the Public Education Award nomination. We haven't done for the last 2 years, and the due date is June 1st. So I would really like to get this in, because the last couple of times that we talked about this, we talked about nominating the Hamilton Wenham Ed Fund. So we just need to decide who we want to nominate, but I think we should get this in as a school committee.
Oh, sounds good. Thanks for remembering that. I actually just noticed that yesterday myself. And forgot to bring
I
it up.
feel like from now on, we need to have an update on the status of learning in the schools and any sort of financial implications of what's going on. And that should just be standing, and as long as the state of emergency is in effect.
How do you want that worded?
Update on learning and financial implications due to the state of
COVID-19 shutdown.
emergency. Due to the state of emergency.
And also for seniors, if we can talk about, parents are asking for updates on when would graduation be.
Yeah. So just
And when's their last day of school? Do they have to go all the way through June, or do they get out early? You know, parents are parents are asking me that. So that type of information, parents would like to get some updates on that senior stuff.
All right. Anything else for future meetings?
So just to be clear, Jean is still on board until the next election.
anti. Yeah, and one thing, Julie, that a parent brought up to me is that students were not able to retrieve their musical instruments. And, you know, it's a skill, and it's also something that's really would be helpful sometimes emotionally to kids. So is there a way we can coordinate that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. We tried to coordinate that. I think the problem is that although there's lockers in the band room, people aren't always putting their instrument in their locker. And the only person there's like one other person who would be able to know whose student instrument is whose without us just opening the doors and letting the kids in, which I do not recommend. And so I'm happy to talk more offline with you about the specifics of that, but we did try to problem solve that and figure that out. If there's someone who really is wanting their instrument, they should contact Tom Geary at t.geary@hwschools.net. He's our Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operations, and we'll be happy to do like a FaceTime with a student or something and say which one of these is yours, if they can point us to the right instrument. But there, we just got caught up with some logistical snags there, but I think we could troubleshoot around that.
Because even like if a student wasn't in school on the day, like because they were sick, and then and something else. Oh, it's getting so bad I can't remember. Oh well, if it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
All right. I'm looking at the motions to move into executive session. And I know I had said to leave the approvals of both on there to reconvene in open session. Can we, since I think we got feedback on each, I don't see that happening. So can we not reconvene in open session, or do we have to just because it's written on? Okay, so.
Okay, so now we're going to see if we can successfully go into a breakout room. If we cannot successfully go into a breakout room, then we will need to have another meeting set up with a different phone number that would be emailed to you. But hopefully we're going to be able to go into this breakout room together.
Okay, is my hand back?
She is back. She's given us that in chat.
Okay, great. Oh, I already saw that. Sorry.
Meeting. Sorry.
So at this point, we want to move to go into executive session for purpose number 3, discuss strategy with respect to collective bidding with the Hamilton Wenham Educational Association, and not to reconvene in open session. Do I need to take votes after each of these? Or can I just do it once? All right. And then also move to go into executive session for purpose number 2, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, Superintendent Mary Beth Banyos, not to reconvene in open session. Michelle Bailey.
Did you say something about that the chair declares that an open session would affect our position?
I did not. I
feel like one of those requires that you say that having it in an open session would affect our bargaining position. So if you can just say that.
So Yes, to have this discussion in open session would compromise the district's position in negotiating these contracts.
Then Michelle Bailey votes yes.
Michelle Horgan,
Yes. Yes.
Peter Walsick,
Yes.
Ty Prima,
Yes.
Jean Lee,
Yes.
Stacy Metternich,
Yes.
and David Polito votes yes. So thank you. Excuse me. Who do we have on here? The only one that's left is Anna, correct?
Yes.
Do we have a waiting room set up here, Michelle? You're muted. No.
Right, but this is still being live streamed, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So Michelle, how do folks go into the breakout room? You're on mute.
I've got 9 people, I think, going to the breakout room, but that means I don't see my name on it. So if I can't get in, then I'll call, let you know. But I think I can because I'm the host. All right. Goodbye.
The host is inviting you to join the breakout room. Join.
Okay, I think we're in the breakout room. Are other people here? The Hamilton Wenham School Committee has adjourned.